Anyway, man. So hey, you went on vacation. Tell me about that, dude. I want to know about it. I know you were planning for a while to go.
We were
excited.
We were planning to go to DC. That was the key place.
Yep.
That was the main place, and we never even went.
Really?
We had the intention to go to DC. We were going to stay in Richmond with Angie's cousin, and then drive into DC. We went to a couple of places in Richmond and found out that it was rich in history in the whole area.
You can see it visually too, man.
Go, man. It's everywhere. You know, growing up in Franklin, we've got 200-year-old buildings here and there, but most of them are 100 and 125, whatever. But, you know, these are some of them, like in Richmond and Yorktown and places like that, that are like 400 years old, man. But anyway, when I was in the military, I've been a bunch of different places of the world and seen 1,000 and 2,000-year-old buildings, so that's no big deal, really. But in American history, it's just mind-blowing that was all around the beginning of our country, you know. And
I'm trying to look up to see when exactly it was. It says it was founded in 1737.
Yeah.
So it's almost...
The building that Edgar Allan Poe's house is in is one of the oldest ones in Richmond.
What do you mean by that? His house is in
his house. Yeah. He lived throughout Richmond.
So is it like in a building?
Well, the building itself, the house, it's still there.
Okay.
Yeah. It is the museum. But it's got a courtyard and it's a small place. It's actually two different buildings. But one's has a reading room upstairs, and they're not big at all, actually, but the houses themselves are, I don't know, maybe 900 square feet each. They're tiny. But that's the way it was back then. But he lived in several different places in Richmond and lived in, he finally died is buried in Baltimore. And there's some basic shrinery going on in Baltimore for him. The place where he drank his last drink, and then he went outside in the alleyway and collapsed.
Is that the house?
Nope. That's the Baltimore house there.
This one is?
Yep. That was his last living residence.
Yeah, that's got to be an early 1800s house, man.
Yeah, the one that's in Richmond, though, it's in the 17s. Old place, dude.
Does it have a lot of windows?
No, it looks like it's just a brick building.
Like this?
No. It doesn't show Richmond House.
Richmond House. Edgar Allan Poe Richmond.
But anyway, I'll tell people too, if you're a big fan of Poe, you really need to go to Richmond. The tour itself, there wasn't a guided tour. It was just, you can stay as long as you want, walk around. Me and my wife stayed there for a couple of hours.
Is it kind of a cobblestone house?
That's it.
Cool.
Yep. Those windows are boarded up now because there were some riots in Richmond not too long ago with the protests, with police protests and that sort of thing. So some damage happened to the windows, so they've got them boarded up now, and they're trying to decide on what to do to permanently cover that to keep from, damage. But anyway, just behind that little house is a courtyard, and then another little house of brick. And it's amazing.
Is that the courtyard?
That's the courtyard.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of old houses?
Oh my God, yes. That's what.
Did you ever come over to my old house in East Nashville?
I did. You had chickens back there.
There's something inspiring to me about seeing just like this table, or I don't know, man. What is that? There's beauty in it. There's real beauty in old architecture and old tools and
Plus, you know that hands were put on it. Hands were, for instance, inside the house, there is a set of stairs with a banister. It's really nice. And the guy that told us before we went in, he was a curator. We met the curator, and a really cool guy, really soft-spoken guy. He said, be sure to check the banister and read the like when you see an artifact in a museum, it's got a little piece of information, a little description. He liked the house that he was living in as a child became dilapidated, and he wanted, before it went into ruin, he wanted the stairs and the banister from that house. And carpenters took it apart. We're talking about the early 1800s here. They took that one apart, brought it to his house, to that house, and reassembled it and put it up. So his childhood stairs and banister, his bed, all that stuff.
That's really cool, man.
Oh, dude.
I dig that.
His hair, they got a lock of his hair after he died. It's on display in there. His uncle wanted to preserve something of him because he knew that there was a lot of, like his fans, you know, they wanted to.
Do they talk much about how well he did financially while he was alive?
He was wealthy and then poor, wealthy and poor, and went back and forth.
Why did he do that? Did he have like gambling problems or just his popularity?
I mean, he liked all that. I mean, it's typical celebrity stuff, I would imagine. Just
like, I have no concept of how popular people like Edgar Allan Poe were in their day.
Well, back then you were a celebrity because you were able to. He was a writer, writing fantastic tales, and he would write sci-fi and spooky and all manner of things. Well, he would read to an audience, you know, and sometimes there would be people in costumes behind him or doing some sort of whatever, but he would write and then he would, you know, entertain. People would be enthralled. They wanted to hear his story, and he would be,
you know, he was like a rock star, bro.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's the same back then. I mean, I would imagine if they had mafia stories, which they loved, you know, back then. They loved the old frontier stories, Daniel Boone, you know. But ghost stories, you know, horror, that never dies. I mean, there's always going to be super fans of that. And, you know, it's something I thought about, too, when I was there. I thought, you know, he kind of created it, really. I mean, it was around before him, but he kind of created it for the American culture. And I think that's what sticks in everybody's mind about him is just how dark he was. And here's what I mean. So his first wife, just for what it's worth, she was 13 and he was 25.
Solid.
Yeah. And they, you know, say what you will, I guess, but I guess that was somewhat of a normal thing back then. I don't know. It seems of course, I'm glad that's not the case anymore, but, you know, he loved her. Like, he really loved her. When he basically lost his marbles once she died. And
when
everybody
did she die?
around
Did she die
him,
young?
yeah, she was. I want to say that she was 25 when she died. It wasn't long. It wasn't too long into her early years. You know, 19, 20 years old, something like that. I can't remember exactly, but I mean, we could probably find it. But everybody around him dies of tuberculosis, which is one of the stories that he wrote that was inspired by tuberculosis. It was the Red Death.
All you had to do was get your shots, and you wouldn't have got it. Let's see, Edgar Allan Poe Museum. Need my glasses, bro. I had to get glasses, dude. 37, never had glasses.
I'm not responsible enough to have glasses. I'll break them.
He died at 40.
Yeah, he was 40 years old.
So the time period that he was alive, because I didn't know this at all. He was born January 19th, 1809, and he died October 7th, 1849.
Mm-hmm.
Yo, you know, I say this all the time, man, about how people used to drop dead when we were kids. I felt like people would drop dead at like 50 or 60. People really, man, this dude died at 40, dude. I'm 37. Like, I can't even, I mean, maybe I'll.
Well, he was an alcoholic. I mean, he ruined his body.
And they didn't have modern medicine.
Mm-mm.
It's crazy. Let's see his spouse, Virginia Eliza Clem.
Yeah, she was very young. And, you know.
She died at 24.
Yeah. Yeah, and it broke his heart. Like, it actually, he stayed with her. She was sick for
she died
4
of tuberculosis.
years, man. It took her 4 years to die. She's very, very sick. He had to pick her up. He had to move her to the bed. And
that's sad, man.
You know, and he couldn't leave her side. He didn't want to leave her side. And dude. So anyway, when she died, on a regular basis, he would go take naps on her grave. That's kind of where Poe was when he was really into his writing. A lot of the stories, a lot of really spooky stuff came after she died, especially. Just a big decline from him.
Where was she from?
That part I don't know.
Yeah, she was from Baltimore. Says she died in the Bronx, New York.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a normal thing, 1325. I would imagine back then it wasn't taboo, I guess. But certainly that kind of thing wouldn't fly today, and it shouldn't. But
it seems like you'd only have so many options. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have phones. So, I mean, your choices would be just what's right there around you unless you were traveling, I guess.
Yeah.
So maybe he's sitting there looking at the 12 chicks that are available.
Maybe.
And he goes down the line and he's like, well, I'm the 13-year-old, I guess.
And then we are fathers of daughters.
Yes.
I could not imagine that.
Yeah, there's no way I'm giving my 13-year-old daughter.
Of course not.
Somebody's going to die.
And I mean, it's not necessarily a cultural thing. I just wonder if just that's the way it was. I don't know,
man, because Jerry Lee Lewis, he married his like 13-year-old cousin, and that was up into like, I don't know what's up with that.
That's true, wasn't it?
Is that pedophilia, bro?
Of course it is. It sounds like it to me.
Yeah, I think it was pedophilia as soon as you said 13.
Man, 13, dude.
Yeah, but who's signing off on that?
That's what I mean. So I would imagine it's not illegal. I would imagine it was a normal thing back then.
So I see it a different way too, though, man. Like you could also say that depending on the circumstances, it would be better off for a 13-year-old girl to be married to a man to keep her safe. Like, let's say how do we know she had family? I don't know. I'm just saying, but like, you could frame the scenario up however, but if a girl didn't have a family and then here she could have, like, this guy would take care of her.
So it's married, maybe. Not anything past that, just some sort of title.
I mean, it could be. I mean, you would be judging that person. Maybe he never had sex with her, dude.
I know he was in love with her, but
I don't know.
I just it's so strange. But that's I would imagine that it was just well, yeah. But I think I'm sure that's I don't know. I'm sure it was accepted back then. I don't know. Who knows?
I'm sure somebody had to sign off on it. So.
Yeah, I mean, of course, my
other people
parents
involved in the situation.
My parents were 15 and 17 when they got married. My mom was 15, my dad's 17.
I just think times are different, man.
They had to get
about the 1800s, 1802.
Yeah,
this girl was born in 1822.
That's what I'm saying. I'm sure the social norms were different then.
That's 200 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And supposedly, I guess the mother of Jesus, Mary, she. Like science estimates her to be 13.
Yo, these people we're talking about are basically cavemen because they didn't have indoor plumbing.
I know.
Electricity.
Yeah.
But they weren't stupid either, though. That's what's amazing about it. When you see these writings of like ex-presidents and Poe or whoever, they're very well read, man.
Well,
I guess you just didn't have anything else to do.
Which leads up to another one was we went to Thomas Jefferson's house in...
TJ.
Yeah.
We went to TJ crib.
I was talking to the park rangers that work there or the curators. It's actually not park rangers because it's still privately owned.
Are they super dorky?
Oh, yeah.
Bro, it'd be annoying to be at a place like that. Like you see Thomas Jefferson's house every day. You think, because you know how people get like really into their work and
I don't know,
at
man.
The paint store
they seem to love it. I don't know.
That's what I was about to say. Like you think they go home and they're like trying to one up each other on all the Thomas Jefferson knowledge they can cram in their head.
Maybe
because they're like all trying to get to the top, and it seems like the very clear path to the top at Thomas Jefferson's place would be to know the most about Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
So they're probably nerding out.
Yeah.
Read all his letters.
Well,
they got the underground bootleg.
There wasn't a question that they couldn't answer.
That's awesome.
But it was amazing, that place, man. I'm glad. What we tried to do was get in as many places as we could, and sometimes we would, like one day we went to Williamsburg and then we went to Yorktown, and we realized that we shouldn't have done that because there was so much we were missing because we were RN. So when we went to Tommy J's house, we took our Tom.
TJ.
So that's what I would tell, like the curator, the people that are giving the tour. I would bring that up once in a while. So when he got to like that, and you could tell they're so frustrated, because Thomas Jefferson is prestigious. He didn't go by Tommy, but once in a while I would say that, it's frustrating. But anyway, so that's why I'm saying they can be geeked out. But
what kind of clothes do they wear in there?
They were just normal.
Like they don't have like a uniform?
No. Mm-mm.
I guess I just imagine them being...
They look like teachers, teachers. They were nice, and the place was very, very nice. I learned a lot. And particularly, this is the first time, living in the South our whole lives and being around Civil War stuff, like you could go to a certain plantation place and there would be slave quarters in the back or whatever, and the kitchen was usually separate from the house, and that's where the slaves would go, and then they would just bring the food in. Typically the kitchen wasn't put in the house. So anyway, we've had exposure like that coming up around here. But when you go to Thomas Jefferson's house, you get a real feel of just how much slavery would have sucked. Like you're immersed in it, because there's a street that's Mulberry Road, and that goes for anybody, because that was so long ago that it's I don't know how else to say it except if the walls could talk, you would just really want to listen, and you're trying to listen, like you try to be quiet and sit in one place. At least I was, and I tried my hardest just to listen, not on a ghost level, I guess, but just to soak it in,
So do they talk much about the slavery stuff there?
Oh yeah, dude, it's everywhere, and it is why Monticello is what it is. Was because of the slaves. There's no other way, and plus there was they talked a lot about white indentured servitude. They owed a debt, or they were in and out of jails and that sort of thing. There was a lot of that too, and they all lived together, But the house was built, but he had the idea to have a lot of where the slaves worked and come in and out was under the house. So there's almost like a tunnel on both ends where they would go in, and you had staircases that go up through the house to the third floor or the second floor and the first floor, to where people wouldn't walk around the house very much. They would just kind of appear inside a room, or they had dumbwaiters through the house. One of them was in a fireplace. Do you know what a dumbwaiter is?
Yeah.
And then they would bring stuff up.
I read Amelia Bedelia books, bro.
Yeah. And he had bell systems.
Is that brick?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an amazing place, man.
So how many acres is it?
That was the first time I got a real live experience of...
Yeah, I've never been there.
Of what it's like, what it would have been like for a slave.
That's outside of Charlottesville?
Yes. Yeah.
Did y'all do anything in Charlottesville? Here's a page. It's got some videos.
Yeah.
It's a nice website.
And that's Mulberry Road. He had a family with one of his slaves too. And there's a lot of history of the descendants that on that end too. In fact, they've been on different shows here and there, but I met that guy that was playing his part. It's unbelievable, man.
I met that guy. I got the VIP pass.
He's always there.
Me and him were killing 2 coors out behind the little slave house there.
I wish. But, his grave is on the property. We went down there and saw his grave and his wife.
How expensive is it to go to a place like this?
$63, I think. No, I'm sorry. It was 30-something to go in and visit the first floor.
first floor. There's 2 floors.
more money to go up to the second. I'm trying to remember exactly. But there's all kinds of stories of particular things that happen, that happened throughout the house. But
So would you guys spend like one day there?
mm-hmm, all day. Got done, sit out in the backyard, dude. It was on a hill peak. Okay, when he got the property from his dad and said, "This is where I'm going to build my house," and for a year, slaves and indentured servants shaved the top of the hill off, picked shovels, whatever,
And just straightened
to
it out?
level it so he could build his house.
Bro, it's pretty baller.
A mountain.
Dude, it says it's 2.6 square miles. How many acres is Monticello? 5,000.
It's huge.
Spread over 5,000 acres, approximately 2 hours south of Washington, D.C.
Just sitting out there and seeing that
5,000.
yard.
So who owns the acreage now?
It's private. It's a trust, I guess. I don't know.
So like the family still owns it?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's just.
Does he have...
That's a good question. This.
Oh. It hit my left ear. It sounded...
No.
sounded like somebody was beating on the door.
So he... Looking at that property, I couldn't help but think of just how much pain, how terrible it was to have probably...
Yo, 5,000 acres.
Mm-hmm.
What did they do with it?
It's all hillside too, man. All of it. It's enormous. And there's nothing around it. I mean, Charlottesville is there, and I don't know if you've ever been to Charlottesville, but it's up and down hills like crazy. I'm not even sure why there's people that live there. No offense to them.
That's where Dave Matthews is from.
Really?
Charlottesville. I think so.
It's on the hillside too, and I mean up and down hills like crazy. You're talking about these really high peaks on these driveways.
Yeah, Charlottesville.
And,
It's cool, man.
Yeah, it
So
was
you went-
really
so you went
mind-opening.
from Richmond to Monticello.
So we went to Monticello, and then I went to Poe's house twice. We went to Yorktown. Yeah.
They wouldn't let me lay in his bed, man. I asked him, man. I told him I'd give him $10.52.
Yeah. Let's see.
How did he die?
He died on 4th of July.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, what I was going to say about him was he, and so did John Adams. They both died on the same day, the 4th of July.
Of the same year?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so did James Monroe, which I found out because we went to the grave. It's called Hollywood
dude,
Cemetery.
They met in the back and tied off.
Yeah. Said, this is it. I went to, which is John Tyler and James Monroe's plots are right next to each other. The 10th and the 5th president. But anyway, Thomas Jefferson, they got this big old fence around his grave, him and his family plot out there. And because people were going up and taking chips out of the monument, the headstone thing, which is giant.
You think it's just people screwing around, man?
But you can see it. It's along the edges where there's broken pieces off. So, a while back they put the fence up. It's a really nice place. A lot of eye-opening things, man, about how...
Like what?
Just, first of all, that we even had slavery. Do you realize how bad that sucks? I mean, just that stain on America, you know what I mean? But to go and live it and see it, it's a different story. Like a real... Like it was an industry. I mean, it was an industry. It was a business, but... Anyway... It did. I felt a real. I don't know.
Well, we had that whole conversation, and me and you both listened to that whole Naomi Parks podcast, the girl from North Korea, and you just start thinking about how well a lot of people do live, and then you think about that they're still even suffering now.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. That stuff does really. It hurts.
Mm-hmm.
I watched a documentary called "Weed the People." and it was about childhood cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And it would show these kids, and these people were desperate, man. And that's actually a really good documentary. It's on Netflix.
I can't watch those. I'm sorry.
And what they were showing is there's this lady.
It's no offense to anyone
who mixes these oils in California and helps medicate these children where they have medical marijuana legal. And so they're pointing out that there are these studies and there's these cases with these kids that they follow that that they have improvements in their tumors. They actually do improve and the kids live. And there's one dude that didn't live. And there's several parts of the man. It's so sad, and it's sad on purpose because they're trying to say that why is marijuana still have, was it class 1 or whatever, where it's the same as heroin, man.
Mm-hmm.
As far as how that drug is classified, and so it can't be studied. And what that classification means is that there's no medical benefit, there's no medical use. And everybody knows that's crap, dude. And so anyway, I watched that documentary, but anytime you see just children or innocent people or women, that's a big one for me, man, is thinking about women in other countries where they don't get the same respect from men.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I watched that, the Outlaw Josie Wales Clint Eastwood movie is on Netflix right now. And I watched it. That movie's insane. But one of the scenes in the movie, these bandits had killed these people on the road. These people were from like Kansas or something. They had a really pretty daughter. She was like a teenage daughter or whatever. And so this group of bandits had killed all her family, and then they are discovering her in the back of this wagon. I don't know if you remember this scene. And then they tear her out of there and are basically tearing her clothes off, and they end up saving her because the dude's like, oh, I can get 20 horses for a virgin and all this stuff. And you think about how those views used to be towards women and towards just other humans. Like when you were saying that, I was thinking to be able to have slaves and to be able to have dominion over another person like that, you would have to convince yourself that that person wasn't a human.
And here's the other part. Work till life. Your whole life, actually, to death, but you know what I mean? Your whole life, you're working. And so your only value is what you can provide as work.
Those people would become institutionalized to a degree, too.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's
so they might have lived they might have lived a nice little life and been treated just fine or whatever, but they were still institutionalized.
They were institutionalized.
And wouldn't have known what it could have been or what they could have had in their life.
Mm-hmm. And very much so, there was several that were considered family with the Jeffersons. And still today, the like I said, their ancestry, they get together, they have reunions and that sort of thing. They all kind of know each other. But even back then, there was, you couldn't, I don't know how else to explain it, except I would imagine that it was, you're not going to tell them what to do because they're very close to me. Like to Thomas Jefferson, you know. But he was a bit of a player. I mean, I don't know that, it absolutely respect and admonish his work, but when it comes down to it, I mean, I don't know. I hate to say it.
Just say it. He's dead, man.
Forget I know, but
TJ.
I'm not trying to.
TJ Wiley's gonna bring the pain on you.
When people, this is my opinion. When people die, when they check out, it's kind of like they're square with the house. You know, I don't want to say something bad exactly, but at the same time, you know, there's a lot of character flaws. You know, I discovered that, like when the author of the Constitution.
Are you meaning that presidents are not perfect people?
That's what I'm saying, man. Like a real in your face that it was just so eye-opening.
Like was he like Bill Cosby? Like was he out there like raping people?
Who knows? I mean,
I'm not saying he did.
What would stop him? I'm not here.
I'm
This
not
is the
trying to
other
have
part.
Jefferson's people run up on me, man.
That's what I mean. I'm not bad mouthing Thomas Jefferson. I'm just making an observation that what was life like there without making. I just can't help but think that he was king among a lot of people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's also one of the most historical story. Like, it's one of the most historically relevant. Like the fall of man. It's what am I trying to say? It's the most historically relevant type storyline. Think about David and Bathsheba.
What would stop him?
Solomon.
That's my point.
And it's biblical. It's
what would anybody
Thomas
say
Jefferson.
or try to stop him from doing whatever he wanted?
It's
up
R.
there?
Kelly, bro. He just wanted to pee on her, bro. I mean,
I'm just saying that I'm not being speculative.
people do weird stuff, man. You get a whole lot of money, and then you can have. Dude, think about being able to have everything you ever wanted.
A ton of fame.
Like, what would happen if I had the means, if I was Jeff Bezos, and I could buy a 10,000 square foot penthouse apartment in downtown Nashville, New York, wherever I wanted, and I had that mother lined with shelves, and I said, I want every record. I want the best version of every record, and I paid somebody to do it. And then just say you had that. Mm-hmm. You had all the collectible stuff. You had the box sets. You had everything. What would you do? Why, there's fun in the journey of. I think that's why we like collecting things. That's why we like bodybuilding. That's why we like doing jiu-jitsu. We like a process. Mm-hmm. Even video games are designed that way now. I mean, Grand Theft Auto. There's people that game's been around. The last Grand Theft Auto for 10 years now. People still play it. You're earning money in cars. So we like the journey. And so now all of a sudden to just be disgustingly rich like Thomas Jefferson or some of these people probably were, you have everything you ever wanted. You have no work to do because people are doing it for you. You have the best house. You help start a freaking country.
Let's go
one
step further.
What else could he do?
Let's go one step further.
Next thing you know, you're, let's having a second family just because you got bored.
Even along just after that, Edgar Allan Poe, he was alive when Thomas Jefferson was alive. And Edgar Allan Poe was an entertainer, he's an artist, so he definitely lived a little more on the progressive side, and there's a lot of evidence towards that. But do you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so
I do have my phone. Maybe it's me. Let's move that piece of junk. Bro. I really wish I could get rid of my phone. What were you about to say? What were you talking about?
I want to finish a thought real quick.
Yeah, go. You're talking about Edgar Allan Poe and Jefferson?
Edgar Allan Poe lived at the same time, so culture wasn't that much different, I guess, because there was still slavery. We were about to go to war over it, And Edgar Allan Poe had money, but he didn't have Thomas Jefferson money, if that made sense. But
he didn't have 2.6 square miles money.
2.6 miles of complete and utter seclusion.
Square miles.
Yeah,
5,000 acres.
Yeah. My only thing is all those people needing things from you, wanting things from you. Now, granted, he had a family. His daughter lived there for a long time, especially at the end of his life with her kids. But meanwhile, he had a family with the slave that lived on the property. I would imagine, I'm not trying to draw on conclusions, but the evidence to me suggests that guy got to do whatever he wanted.
Of course he did.
Wouldn't that make sense?
I mean, he sounds like Elvis to me when you're saying that.
He just did whatever he wanted to do, and, screw what you thought of me. I guess. It just seems that, especially when you can go to a store literally at that time and buy people, and that wouldn't be, of course that's corrupt enough, but I'm saying that in that time to not just use people for whatever you wanted them for at the moment, even if it was a spur of the moment That's why I'm saying I'm not trying to.
Well, who would stop him?
That's what I mean. Not his wife,
If
apparently.
if you're a part of a group of people who basically say, "Hey, man, we don't want to be a part of your country anymore. Come get it."
And he was one of the, yeah.
And they do that.
He wrote
and
it.
won.
He wrote it.
Yeah.
You know, and I
mean, who's going to come tell him what to do?
And I made this point with Jeff yesterday. We had lunch, and I was talking to him about it. And there's an original portrait. There's an original print, and I know it's a bit of a conundrum, but it's an original print or copy of the first edition, first groups of prints of the Declaration of Independence. And it's the one that all the Continental Congress signed, and John Hancock had the bigger handwriting. You know, he wanted to stand out the most, so he wrote his name the biggest on the Declaration, and it's all down on the bottom. So he authored that. He wrote it, man, himself. Went to the Continental Congress. They didn't want to make any corrections or edit. They thought it was perfect. And then they signed it. And then it went to a printer, wherever. I want to say it was probably, I would imagine that it was I can't remember where it was. But anyway, so they did the prints. Each one of them got a copy. Thomas Jefferson got a couple, and they're hanging up on his wall right there in his office. And it's it's an original print. I would imagine that he looked at that quite a bit of, look at that. Look what we did. Not only did we pick a fight with England, we knew this was coming. This is what the people wanted, and he believed in it very much. He thought that we could be our own separate country. So they drew up all those papers. Now, the point that I'm getting at is this. After all of those accomplishments and after all of that success in his life, and Monticello wasn't the only plantation that he had. I mean, there was another one, too. I want to say there was another one in Richmond, but I know it was in Virginia. But anyway, but that was his favorite. That's where he lived, and that was his primary residence. He spent time in France as a delegate for the country. I'm not trying to badmouth. I'm saying that there's just some inevitabilities that are out there when it comes to money, seclusion.
For sure, dude.
I mean,
for sure.
And I hate to say it, I'm not man bashing, but we're the worst. Oprah wouldn't. I wouldn't think. I don't know if anybody.
I don't know if anybody is free from it though, bro. Like
that's what I mean. I don't.
It's a natural. It's a natural tendency for men when they have power and money to want to use that power and money to get laid.
Right.
I mean,
and other things. I mean, not just that. Just so what if he was in a bad mood, wanted somebody else to feel bad? Cut all those trees down, sir. We can't get the whip. I don't know. I'm not saying that he was that type of person, but my point is, what would stop someone in a circumstance?
Well, look at the evidence of what he did do, though. I mean, we could speculate all day.
There was a lot.
But when you were saying the part about writing the Declaration of Independence, he had in his mind an idea that there shouldn't be a group of other human beings anywhere telling him as an autonomous human being what to do.
Right.
And really, that's the essence of what we have here in this country.
It's perfectly put the way you just said that.
Yeah. And so that he was one of the people that believed in that idea, which would still be the idea that once it grew, freed slaves. Once it grew, became way more multicultural. And yeah, it rubs people the wrong way sometimes, and you have people that have completely different ideas, and they're doing things in California that we don't do in Tennessee, and it's all these different experiments of democracy. But man, some of the stuff works. When Colorado first started legalizing marijuana, I think it kind of excited. I mean, now it's just a matter of time, bro. I mean, I feel like it's so wide open, and people's eyes are wide open to it. And when a common person sees the evidence of weed versus alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Just
It's
in
so
the
easy to
aftermath
see
of
the
it.
yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, most normal, educated human beings at this point are like, dude, whatever. It's just a matter of time. But I remember when they were legalizing it in Colorado, and everyone was excited to see the experiment. Let's just see what happens. I mean, we still do a lot of those type things. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of those type items that have happened in other countries, and I'm not saying that other countries aren't advancing, and maybe even in some ways are advancing farther. But what I'm saying is that Declaration of Independence is important to not only us, but it was the original, hey man, I don't care what you guys think, we're trying this. We're doing it, and you're not going to stop it, and we'll die over it, I swear.
And that is exactly why I am not. That's my point to clarify.
Like, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
It's exactly that.
And that's exactly why I'm not Thomas Jefferson hating. Does that make sense? Him as a person with all.
Hey, bro, but he never did anything for me either, other than all that.
And that's
and
fine.
Starting the Marines and everything else.
And I'm okay with.
He didn't leave me any money, is what I'm saying. So I'm not like.
I'm saying in general, going to a place like that and seeing all this wealth, and here's what I'm getting at: to go to a place like that and see all that wealth, and just especially in the time, and to have all that property and influence over people and fandom, and I couldn't help but get that feeling of just personal power, I guess, and how it kind of felt gross a little bit.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
And when it was just a generalization about that, not the experience. The place was beautiful. I'm glad we went. It was amazing and to see how all that worked. But I had a feeling and I had a sense of, especially inside the in the basement, where everybody worked, and they ran up and down these stairs, and for a long time they had to run down to the bottom of the hill to get water and bring it up every day in these basket or in these buckets until they built the cisterns. It occurred to me, just on a human level, forget titles, forget names, just on a human level, it occurred to me. It wasn't overwhelming, but it was enough for me to recognize that what would stop anyone that had that sort of lifestyle to do whatever they wanted. I mean, there was a lot that he chose, and
isn't that the same stuff people are doing though when they're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars and bribing their kids into colleges? I mean, that's the same kind of. I mean, humans aren't perfect.
No, we're not.
Humans have continued to mess up and make mistakes. It's just some are bigger and affect more people. I mean, Jeff Bezos left his old lady. I mean, he didn't kill a bunch of slaves afterwards or anything. Right. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, he could make a couple bad decisions and screw up a lot of people's lives now. There's a lot of people that work for Amazon.
A lot.
So yeah. And
I don't know.
Would we even know the story? I mean, I'm sure there were people that were way more ruthless and awful than Thomas Jefferson ever was at his most awful
and that's
moment,
what I mean.
But we've never heard of him.
It's not about, and that's what I mean. I want to make it clear again, too. I'm not talking about the evils of Thomas Jefferson. That's not the point. The point is I got this feeling of just, man, what if you had this, and I put myself in that position with all these people walking around and they're really working hard trying to get this built and dig this field and bring water up, and it's all because this one guy wanted them to. It's 400 slaves, I think it was, and indentured white people working for him. 400.
What did they do?
There was a street over there. It wasn't a street, but it was a row of shops and slave quarters that they built things like nails and coal. They burned their own coal. They made coal. They chopped down the wood, and smoke the wood and dry it out and make coal. There was all kinds of things. He got into the quilting business at the end, or I know I'm chopping this up, and if anybody's listening to Thomas Jefferson or loves Thomas Jefferson, they're probably hating on me right now, but that's not the point at all. I think, honestly, too, for slaves and rich white landowners and that sort of thing, all of them, in a sense, were victims of their time, because there was a thing that was going on, and that's the way.
Well, it seems like that would have been the crowning jewel of success at the time. If you could have a plantation and 400 slaves and all these businesses, and 2.61 square miles of land.
Property, yeah. Dude, imagine the people that needed something from you or wanted something from you.
Think
and
about
on top of that, fame.
Think about what a plantation created at the time, though. No matter who the slaves were, whether they're white people, black people, whatever, all that stuff you were just saying was what it would be necessary to have to live autonomously. So if he really believed in this idea, they didn't have, government food coming in or any of that. It was, hey, we got to go out here on this land. We got to be able to survive right here on this land. And we need to have something we can sell. I mean, he had to feed all those people too.
Yeah.
Think about how much food it would take to feed.
I swear, man, we're on the same. We're always on the same page. But that was just about to say that their diet consisted mainly of cornmeal and pork. Cornmeal and pork, yeah. And I don't know exactly the reason why. I think it's just
cheap.
Pigs are cheap,
Corn's cheap.
Yeah. And that's basically what they had. I forget where I read that, but it was on the tour. It was on one of those things, but I don't know, man. I know I'm just kind of out there in my conversation right now, but it's just based on just feeling the human level out there. I don't know that I could necessarily blame. Okay, here's an example, and this may not be a really good one, but I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I got whipped in a grocery store or somewhere out in public. If I was out of line, I got popped. Sometimes in the mouth, not too often in the mouth, but most time on my leg or whatever, and it was just a culturally acceptable thing.
Of course.
But now you would probably go to jail.
Did you just hit your child?
You would at least have someone recording you, I bet, or calling.
Darlene, I saw this lady over here. She just hit a child.
That's a pretty good impression. But so that was a socially accepted
you'd have some
thing, and that was
coming
physical.
Unglued.
That's physical abuse in public in front of other people at the deli.
Have you seen the videos where these teenagers, bro? They'll have they're in Walmart. I should pull this up and show you because, bro, you will bust out. They have a shopping cart and they have a car seat sitting up in the top of the. I'm already laughing. I'm trying to get it out.
Yeah.
So then they have a sound device or something in this car seat, and they hit it, and it starts crying like a baby, and the dude just grabs the car seat, and he's like, "Shut up!" And he just punches the car, punches in the car, and they'll do it in front of people just to see how they'll react.
Oh my gosh!
And then the other dude will walk up, you're sitting there thinking, is he about to get mad that the dude punched? And then he'll punch into the car seat too, and that's when the people end up responding. Because at first it looks like, oh well, this dude's gonna go over there. I'm not gonna involve myself. He's about to say something, and then the dude punches in the car seat too.
My favorite it's their classic is they leave the car seat on top of the car and just start driving around in the parking lot. People are freaking out, which I would too.
Do you think all that stuff came from Jackass?
Yeah.
Was it happening before that? Maybe the Tom Green show. Do you remember all that? It started. There was a time period where it started being funny and cool because Tom Green used to walk around with the stroller.
Oh,
and he
yeah,
would collapse it and fall on it.
Yeah. That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. They really inspired all of this TikTok, YouTube.
Did
Vines.
you hear Tom Green on? I don't mean to get too far
on
away, but
Rogan?
Joe Rogan.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Wow, that was eye opening. About I had
did you ever check out where he's living in that van?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, it's pretty kind of cool.
It's pretty neat. Yeah,
I feel like my wife liked him. She thought he was funny. I used to think he was a little corny, but he'd be funny at times.
Yeah.
Was he the one? No, it was Jackass was the one where they would go into the store and sit on a toilet and the dude took a dump. Hey, they were wild, man. They still are.
If I worked there, I'd have beat him up. They got to clean it.
Have you seen the viral video? Crew. Have you seen the viral video of the homeless guy taking a crap in the dude's mop bucket in the subway?
No.
Oh, you got to see that, dude. It's the look on the guy's face who works there that, like, hang on, this is worth it, dude. I don't know how we got
in a mop
here.
Bucket.
Yeah,
I don't know how we got here either.
It's funny.
What were we talking about?
A homeless guy. Okay, dude. It's 43 seconds long. Here we go. Check this out. Watch this. Look, he's like, come on, man. He's like,
is that real?
Yeah, it's real, dude. Dude had to take it down. Look.
Oh my gosh. That can't be real.
Look, dude,
I'm walking away from it.
I'd quit.
That's it.
Yo, when we used to work at Sherwin-Williams, when I was at that store in Cool Springs, there was a dude's kid who would come in and he would smear crap all over the wall.
Ugh.
And we'd have to clean it off. And I ended up having to talk to him. I was like, because the first time it happened, you're thinking, okay,
ugh.
I don't know how he did that, but maybe. But then the second and third time that it happened, it was like, dude, you're gonna have to keep your kid out of here, man. I'm not cleaning poop off the wall every single time.
But yeah, I don't know how
what
to
were
sum
we talking
up
about?
we were
talking about Jackass and all that.
We were, But before that, again, it's not Thomas Jefferson hating. I'm saying that sitting there at that place, this is all I'm saying. It opened my eyes to, I don't know, honestly, just wealth and power and all that kind of thing. I couldn't help but just kind of feel it, like what that would have been like. And it just seemed, I don't know, it seems gross. I don't know.
Are you about to apologize for your white privilege, Wylie?
No, and that's another thing. It has nothing to do with any of that, like politics or Thomas Jefferson or any of that. It's just class.
Yeah, and everything's so different, and time changes so many things, and I think there's so many variables to all of that. I don't think any educated person at this point would say that slavery was a good thing.
Of course not. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's what helped start commerce in this country, and I think that's why you have people that are still angry about it. They feel like their ancestors' backs were ridden to get some people wealth that have wealth now. And, and I understand those frustrations. And I think you could fight on either side of that for the rest of your life and never really accomplish anything. And
yeah,
I think
and that's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to correct the ills of history. I had a very strong sense of just like, I mean, it had to have been bad, or I don't know. I don't even know what to think, honestly. It's just to realize the power of what this guy had and how he would have used it, or some of the evidence of what he did
should be learned from it is that people do that.
That's just it. I want to learn from it still. I haven't gotten to the point.
It's a mindset of rich and powerful people, or it could be a temptation.
It had to have been.
And so we just need to observe that and go, hey, look, this guy, when he was rich in his day, figured out a way to do all these things. What are our people that are rich and powerful now? What are they doing? Are they showing any signs of this? Because if they are, we need to bust them in the mouth before they end up with 5,000 acres and 400 people. I don't know, man.
Do you think there's a secret place? And I mean this. Do you think that there's a secret place? There is nobody, well, besides Prince, what's his name, in Saudi Arabia. But he's the richest, isn't he?
Who?
Jeff Bezos.
Yeah,
outside of royalty.
Yeah, but they don't count some of the people that you're probably thinking of royalty, like Middle Eastern guys. They don't count. I don't just mean general Middle Eastern guys. I'm saying there might be drug lords.
Yeah.
Or
Because Escobar was one.
That's the guy I was trying to think of. They didn't count him forever.
Well, here's my question, and I mean this. This is going to sound
Bro,
ridiculous.
They spent $7,000 a month in rubber bands to wrap money at a certain point. That's what Pablo Escobar's brother said. $7,000 in rubber bands.
Yeah, that's a lot of cash.
Man, they said they would find that stuff buried and like worms had eaten the money. Like they ruined money.
Yeah.
Trying to hide the money. They didn't have places. They had so much money coming in, they didn't have places to put it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
I really do mean this when I say this, and this is going to sound completely off topic, but to sum it up, Richmond was a great trip.
so did you go to restaurants and stuff while you were there?
Oh yeah, we went to different.
What kind of stuff? Did you? There's one that's in like a hotel that's pretty decent and famous. Did you go there?
We went to we ate in Norfolk.
We went to this place called Arby's.
Yeah. Have you ever seen an aircraft carrier?
They got the beef. Have I ever seen one? If I did, it would have been when I was a kid.
It's hard to believe that humans built that and it's a functioning machine out there doing something.
They're huge.
They're enormous. And there was one that was in the dock there in Norfolk when we were there. And then there was a repair dock, what looked like a repair dock that had some sort of big Navy lift thing, but it wasn't quite an aircraft carrier. It's unbelievable how big that stuff is. We went to Virginia Beach on Angie's birthday. We stayed there, walked up. We ate dinner on the boardwalk, some restaurant up there. It was really nice. The beach is brown sand. The water isn't as clean. At least it looked like it wasn't as clean. I say clean, clear as in the Gulf. Gulf water is a lot prettier. But anyway, that's to sum it all up with the trip. But I really mean this when I say it, since I wasn't even thinking about any of this. But, there is slavery in the world, sex slavery. Like people are literally, they're given drugs or whatever, they're abducted, and they're put on circuits. They go around the different world. That's a proven thing. People don't realize that is a real thing.
Well, I think people compartmentalize it and don't want to think about it. Because if you say there are women out there right now who against their will are having to have sex for money or whatever.
And a lot of the time,
what do you do about it?
A lot of the time the families sell off their kids, man.
Dude, I actually get really freaked out about that when we travel and we're at like a truck stop because I don't know a lot about sex trafficking. But it seems to me like that would be a place, a lot of intersecting people, a lot of people crossing paths there. It'd be real easy to snatch up a
that's
7-8-year-old blonde-headed, curly, blue-eyed girl.
That's what happens.
And then it's a 10-year investment, or maybe 4 or 5 year investment.
Yeah, and
probably people that pay to mess with her now.
Sometimes I don't know why this isn't.
God, bro,
I know. I don't know.
Think about that. Any imposing of a will over another person is disgusting. It should be a capital crime.
You
right?
cannot help but consider that it may start in a sense. It start in a way like I didn't mean to use Jeff Bezos. I meant Jeff Epstein.
Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, Jeff Epstein.
Completely different people.
Yeah, I know. And I want to clarify that. But I would imagine that there is just Jeff Epstein was.
Hey, I really believe that he had girls on that island and people were going there and it was a sex island for real.
Yeah, of course. Why not?
It
went on for years.
It's
Why wouldn't
another
they?
one of those things that if you say that out loud, okay, what do you do about it?
Mm-hmm.
It's been swept under the rug because there's insanely powerful people that are tied to it. They're still going after that guy, Prince Andrew or whatever.
Yeah. Is there always going to be that?
Yo, when Clinton dies, when Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton are gone, because their daughter's not really in it. Like, they're mob, dude. Do you think that? When they die, bro, like there's gonna be some crazy stuff come out.
Probably.
I'm not questioning their character. I'm not saying that he was a good president, bad president. I'm not saying whether I like him or not like him. What I'm saying is there's some wild stuff there, dude. Like, people make a lot of claims about them with the body count,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that the Kennedy guy that crashed out in the Atlantic. There's crazy stuff tied to them. The drugs that were being run through Arkansas.
Yeah.
I mean, if just one thing that they're blamed for is true, it's pretty wild.
So you answered my question. What really? I mean, my question is, do you believe that it's Thomas Jefferson could buy people? And again,
You think
I'm
Kim
not-
Jong-un
I'm
has...
only using him as an example, but in today's world, what's the difference with sex slavery? There is an industry there. It's completely illegal, of course, but
I think what we need to realize, and this is what I was saying earlier with the child cancer and bringing up Naomi Parks and all
I
of
can't
that.
believe we got off on all this
No,
stuff.
it's cool. I think people really need to realize that there are people that still suffer.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes,
Right.
even as good of a nation as we are, we add into some of the suffering. We maybe pick fights when we should really try to be more diplomatic.
I totally agree.
I don't know.
there.
I mean, I really think that there's enough food and technology and information and education in this country that we need to stop fighting each other about stupid stuff, tribal, religious related crap, and realize that all this Thomas Jefferson stuff that you talked about is our call, bro. Our whole call in this nation is to help people who are suffering. D.O. Hughley, he has a joke where he talks about the bottom of the Statue of Liberty says, "Bring us you're tired, you're broken, you're
poor and huddled masses."
And he's like, I'm just saying, if we don't mean it, why don't we just take it off? Like, if there are suffering people in this world, I think as Americans we have work to do, either diplomatically, foreign aid. People knock all that stuff, but bro, there are still people that live out there without clean water. And maybe sometimes that feels guilty to me, because like maybe that's more important than hobby things I'm doing or whatever, you know, like, and maybe that's growing up religious, but to me, there are people alive now who are suffering. So instead of fighting about all this tribal crap and, you know, we can't fix what happened with slavery and all that, but what we can do is make sure we're trying to help minimize it the best we can in other places, and then we're not adding to it.
Right.
You know, there was a time, bro, that in the United States, if you wanted to buck up and act crazy and hurt your people, we would drive through in our tanks and smack you in the mouth, and people chilled out. I don't know what the answer is, man. The wars and everything else don't seem to have helped in my time period that I've been alive. I don't look back and go, man, it's really good we did that war, man, because it just seems like it's just pushed the problem farther and farther out.
The example after example of nation building just doesn't work. So definitely get out of business.
But we don't have to talk about all that stuff, man. I mean, there's a bunch of problems and there's a bunch of crap, but I think there's some cool stuff going on, man. I was telling you, dude, I sat out in my garage the other night and laughed all by myself, thinking about like all these crazy people that I grew up around. And I don't know if you've done this, man, but I've had different moments where I'll look back at my childhood and maybe I get angry at my parents, or I'll think, man, they should have done this, they should have done that. But then when you have kids of your own and you start thinking about your full situation, you know, you start to realize like maybe they were busy, maybe they were trying to get their careers going and where they wanted to be. And so you start having a little bit different perspective. So I was sitting there thinking about growing up in Madison, Tennessee, and I was telling my mom I was bussed from, do you know where the Hooters in Rivergate is?
I do.
Okay. So I was bussed in the 5th and 6th grade from right about there is where they got on the interstate all the way down to Trinity Lane. And I was going to 5th and 6th grade down on Trinity Lane. And I was telling my mom that. I know. Because we lived over behind Rivergate Mall. And so they were taking us from right about where that mall is all the way to Trinity Lane. And I said, Mom, and I was dying laughing. because you think about this. It's like 13-year-olds marrying 25-year-olds. You think about this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
it just blows your mind right now.
Yeah, I'm like, Mom, next time you get on the interstate, because she lives in Hendersonville, so she's like coming off that Vietnam Veterans Bypass. I'm like, next time you get on the interstate, drive like you're coming to my house, you're going to pass Trinity Lane. Think about, how old are you in 5th grade, bro? Like 10?
Yeah.
I'm like, we were on a bus with a dude who wore women's shoes. Our bus driver used to wear women's shoes, promise. On all this.
No other women clothing, just shoes.
Women's shoes, flats.
Interesting.
Women's shoes. And we rode on this bus with that dude from that about that Hooters. We picked up kids behind that Hooters, bro. There's like so we pick up these kids behind the Hooters, and then we'd ride on I-65 south all the way to Trinity Lane.
Golly, dude.
Yeah.
Huh.
So anyway, but that stuff cracked me up, dude, because I was thinking.
You know where Leaper's Fork is?
Yeah.
All right, so Boyd Mill Avenue in Franklin, which it's up by West Haven. Okay, that's the street I grew up on. But
there wouldn't have been a West Haven then, though.
No.
Right?
Me and my brother got picked up there. We were the first ones picked up. The last ones dropped off because of the route from the bus driver, obviously. But we would be bused to Hillsboro down in Leaper's Fork.
Because how did they figure all that out?
I don't know, man.
Do they change the bus route? I mean, because you only know what you know as a kid, but do they have a list of like all the kids?
Oh yeah,
who are coming?
Who's gonna? Yeah,
and this is gonna be the spot. This is where you need to. Yep. I don't remember how any of that works.
Mm-hmm. I guess it's all done by GPS now, but back then it was just knowing where their addresses were. But anyway, living next to crazy people.
Yeah. Yeah, I was cracking up, dude.
Who was you were telling me about the woman, the DeVille?
Yeah, her name was Julia, dude.
Yeah.
She was actually really cool. She'd let us ride our bikes on her driveway, which as a kid was super cool because we would just go around our house and we'd go up her driveway.
Did it loop or it just looped?
So it was just, I mean, we both had like paved driveways.
Yeah.
And we had a carport. And so me and my brother would ride down the sidewalk. We would come down our driveway through the carport. It was like a foot drop, so we'd kind of jump off of that.
Yeah.
And then we'd go over to her driveway, and she had this little like concrete ditch that we could kind of get squirrely in. And then we'd come up onto her driveway and then just do it again.
Yeah.
And she was totally cool with that. But she was crazy, dude. She had this white Cadillac, and we knew she didn't have money, but she had like I mean, you just kind of tell that she didn't have money. Or she didn't have the appearance of money, but she had this really nice Cadillac for some reason. And then she was married to this dude. I can't remember his name. I want to say it was
Gary.
I want to say Jerry, but I don't think it really was.
Really?
I think it might have been.
Huh.
Why, you know a Julia and a Jerry?
No, but
I bet there's some Julias and Jerry.
Julia, Jerry.
So anyway, she was weird, dude, but she was super nice to us. But they used to have this what are the type dogs? The Lassie dogs? The
collie?
Yes. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. The collies. So she had one out back tied up, and we'd see her walk out there in her bathrobe, like taking this dog food. They never pet this dog. This dog never came off the leash, any of that. And I'm pretty sure the only people that ever pet this dog was me and my brother. But it was one of those dogs that you would go up to it and you would pet it, and then it would be all over you, and it stunk. And so it'd be like 2 months before you ever touch that dog again.
Did y'all have an indoor dog?
Never.
We didn't either.
My dad
wouldn't allow it.
We had mutts, dogs that would show up.
But I mean, they wouldn't come inside. Like you wouldn't have a little ankle biter in the house.
My mom would never have let them.
When I was a teenager, my mom got a Shih Tzu, and she's had a dog ever since. Several of them have died, various reasons, but we don't have one either. We tried.
I like dogs. I
do
dogs.
too. I love dogs. We tried. The last one that we had was because my son was about, 12 or 13, and he was talking about a dog. We said, you know what, we'll give it another try. Because the best dog we ever had got hit by a car out in front of our house. It was awful. But anyway, she died in Angie's arms. Ugh. Yeah, it was pretty bad. Kids were around. They all saw it. Pretty bad. But anyway, so there was a big gap of time before we got another dog. And this dog we tried for the first couple of days, every single time that damn thing would take a dump, it would turn around and eat it.
God.
Every time.
I think
and then it would
isn't
come
that a
up.
sign that there's something missing out of their diet?
There's something wrong, and then it would jump up and get on you and lick. It was playful, but it was looked at as an Ebola, or an amoeba, just trying to get it because it was filthy. This thing, its mouth, like its body, was clean, but it just had this.
Yo, if you got a dog that eats turds, you got to tell people. Like you can't just let your dog be licking all over people, and good and well
it was horrifying.
It's recycling poop.
Yeah,
how does that not kill an animal?
I don't know. Because
it seems like you're pushing all this toxic waste out,
and you're
just going to regurgitate it again. How long can you do that before something bad happens?
I promise you, this is a true story.
Yeah,
it was within. We had it a week, and it did that so many times that I told Angie, I said, I can't do this. And I don't know what it is to get this dog. There's probably people that will watch this right now and go, man, this is what you should have done. Well, I couldn't.
Shot it? Just shot the dog and got another one?
It looked like...
That's a joke.
It occurred to me that this is the most foul animal. There's something's wrong with it, and I'm not going to be able to help it. It needs to be in a better place with better care. So I said, we need to get rid of this thing. No, we can't get rid of it, and it's my buddy. Come on.
Doom, doom, doom.
Yeah. What? So
it tried to attack me.
I gave him money.
What?
I gave him money.
Gave who money?
Daniel. I bribed him. I said, we got to give it to a better home. And I took it. We didn't go to the animal shelter. I forgot Angie knew somebody who wanted it and said that they could work with him. I said, fine. So I gave Daniel.
You took his dog, bro.
We worked our way up to $50.
And I thought you were at least going to say $100.
I gave him $50 so we could get rid of this damn thing.
How old was he?
I want to say he was 11, somewhere in there.
That's not too bad.
It was enough of an age where a dog was a big deal to have, and it was a buddy.
Yeah, man, you get rid of like some 6 and 7-year-old dogs.
Yeah. So
mine just ran away. Not like it just happened, but when we moved to Spring Hill, I had 2 dogs. Did I tell you that story?
Yeah, I remember you telling me.
They just ran away.
Did I tell you about after?
Did you find her?
After our friend, our buddy Samantha? She was the dog that we had and we loved. Everybody loved Samantha, and she was a pit mix. All that's wrong, by the way. And I think
what do you mean? What's wrong?
I think the idea is getting out there that a pit it can easily be a good family dog.
Pits are awesome.
They're great.
We had a pit mix in East Nashville.
Yeah.
Joan.
Yeah, Samantha was this one's. Named him after the German Shepherd.
They're good
and
dogs.
I Am Legend.
Have you ever seen the videos of that people put up on YouTube?
Oh, all
pit
the time.
bulls attacking kids?
All the time.
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, but they're playing with them.
Yeah. They're like licking and stuff.
But so I got to tell you this real quick. So
they're sweet.
I got that call that night at the fire station, and Angie was very upset. She told me the whole thing, that Samantha had gotten hit by a car, and she cradled her.
How long ago was this?
Danny was probably 7, maybe 7-ish,
So
7, 8,
14,
somewhere in
15
there.
years ago.
Yeah, and like I said, Jenny across the street. So what Angie would do was, her and Jennifer, good buddies, they would just go to each other's houses. They're back and forth. So Angie goes outside, crosses the street, goes up to the neighbor's house, talking to her. They're sitting on the porch. I'm working on something in the garage, and I can tell Samantha loved Angie, and she was feverishly looking for her in the house. She lost her. And I had the garage door open, and this would happen all the time, that, she would just bolt over to wherever Angie was, especially if she was outside. She loved being outside. Well, this particular time, that same thing happened, but I was at the fire station. And it was the same thing. She comes outside. She's losing her mind, looking around for Angie. She sees that Angie is across the street. She bolts right on into a van, gets hit,
God.
And then Angie, they all witnessed it. She scooped her up, and she was holding her and felt her go limp as she died, dude. It was awful. And Danny saw it and all that. Well, I was at the fire station, and I get the phone call. They're all upset. And so the very next morning, I go straight home, and I walk in, and Jenny from across the street, she's in the house. She's crying.
Jenny from the block?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
And
You might still know her. I shouldn't say that.
she her son was there. The neighbor kid Abby, she was there. Her and Danny are the exact same age. They're best of friends. She's there sobbing. Daniel's sitting on the couch and he's
it's
sobbing.
rough to lose a
Dude,
dog.
it's so bad, and in front of you in such a violent manner. You know what I mean? But anyway, so Angie's upset, and this is what I walk into at about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning.
Like you're getting off the fire hall or something?
Yeah, and I'm walking in the house, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, this is the first real lesson of death. He doesn't know any uncles or aunts or whoever and who have passed away, so this is a good opportunity to talk to my son about death, and, you know, it's real. I mean, it was to us, you know. I watched my uncle shoot a dog right in the face, because it got hit by a car and it was dying, and I was very upset about it. And
Dude, okay, so that's the type of stuff that I'm saying. I was dying laughing.
I know
about.
That's what I'm telling. Yeah,
you're talking about a time before internet and phones, and you saw a dude shoot a dog.
My dog got hit by a car from in the same fashion. It was out in the street and got hit, and then my dad picked it up, brought it up.
You got to do what you got to do, man.
And it was suffering, you know, and its eyeballs sticking out of its head. I remember that really well. And I remember focusing in on this dog with kind of its head hanging off the tailgate, and it's kind of trying to move. So by this time, his head is kind of off the tailgate. And I'm so focused on this, and I'm looking at it. And out of nowhere, this shiny barrel comes out right at this dog's head in my view. Pow! Plugs him.
Okay. But... Like, think about the
nobody thought
learned,
about
man.
it.
Yeah, like
nobody thought about it back then. Of course, he had a beer in the other hand. You know,
some things just have to be done.
I mean,
some things just have to.
You know. And so anyway,
I had a dog. I had a dog I had to kill. Did you know that? Did I tell you that story?
I think so. It was at your old house, wasn't it?
Yeah, she was my pit mix. It was the first dog me and Ashley had. She was old. She was like 15. 14, I don't remember, but she was just getting skinnier and skinnier and skinnier, and we would feed her more and we dewormed her, but we couldn't take her to the vet because when we took Joan to the vet, she would freak out. And so when we were younger, we would put a muzzle on her. Well, then she started biting her own tongue, and she would really bite her own tongue, and it would injure the tongue. And so then they gave us sedatives. So she'd be on sedatives and in the muzzle, and she would bite her tongue. So now she's just like drooling and pooping. So anyway, that was her experience going to the vet every single time. So it kind of got to a point where our dogs stayed. We had a pretty big backyard in East Nashville, and so we would. I was actually just thinking about whether I'm gonna get in trouble. They can't. Man, this was like 10 years ago. I don't know. So anyway,
you were doing it humanitarianly.
Yeah, it was of mice and men for real.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't take her to the vet. She was suffering. So we just go out in the backyard and I praised her and told her how much of a good job I thought she did, and then handled it, man. I mean, and it was one of the hardest things that I ever did.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been there before. But to finish up, let me tell you this real quick. Have you been in one of those spots, to sum it up, have you been in one of those spots where you can't laugh, but there's something really funny that just happened?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, this is the pinnacle of this forever, that I'll go in there, and I'm talking to Danny in front of very upset people. And he's in one of those, moments, like deep crying, and he has her collar in his hand. It's awful. But I'm sitting on the couch with him, and I'm thinking, I said, well, these things happen, man. Something that you love, and just because we put it up on a pedestal and we think that nothing bad will ever happen, sometimes these kinds of things happen. It's just a part of life, really. And I'm telling these things, and he said, do you know what happened? And I said, yeah, buddy, I'm sorry, I heard. I heard what happened. He goes, she got run over in the face. And I went, I swear I laughed.
She got run over in the face.
And I went.
That's awful.
And Angie got so upset, and Daniel goes, "It's not funny." And I said, "I know, man. I'm sorry. It's just the way you said it." Isn't that terrible?
Yeah, but man, whatever.
I don't know. Anyway, so that was the.
You know, I was thinking when you were saying that, I was thinking about how much of a lesson that could be to a child to lose a dog.
Oh my gosh, it was.
And even
for me.
though it sucks, you learn exactly what you said, which is, hey man, I love these things and they're not guaranteed. Parents, siblings, grandparents, whatever. You know, I look at my life and I still have 3 of my 4 grandparents alive now, and I'm 37. And I'm very fortunate, but what really sucks about it is, you know, due to their age or whatever else and COVID, it makes it virtually impossible to even see them. I told Ashley that the other day. I was like, man, if something happened to one of my grandparents right now, I would feel like the last 2 years of their life was stolen from me because I can't, maybe I was too far away. I can't go around them. I mean, I know there's ways and all that, but I mean, it's so hard, it seems like.
What was your first lesson of death? How long have we been talking, by the way?
About an hour and 35 minutes.
This is good.
My first death, my first encounter with death. I've told this story before, but my dad used to be able to ride on the fire engines.
Mm-hmm.
And so me and my brother were riding with him one time, and there was a guy they brought out that was like on a stretcher, and they were sitting out in this, I can see this like it's a movie in my head. They bring this guy out on a stretcher, and they have it sitting up, you know, and they're sitting there and they're talking to him, working on him, whatever. And me and my brother are sitting in the front of the fire engine, just watching. I mean, dude, this is like 95, 6 or something.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the dude just like, I don't know if it was ODing or what, but I mean, this dude just like went out just for, I mean, it was just different.
And that was it.
And my dad like turns around, looks at us, and he's like trying to get us to not look.
Mm-hmm. Too late.
And I think that guy died. I mean, but we didn't know it at the time. I think it was one of those deals later. My dad had to ride in the ambulance, so we rode with another guy back to the fire hall, and then my dad comes back, and you know, you're sitting there for like an hour or so, and we're like, hey, that guy died? And he's like, yeah, that guy died. And so then you're like, oh, I saw a dude die. It
took me a while. I was 16. My grandmother
Have you ever just like
died.
seen a dead body? Just like in the wild?
In the wild? I mean, we respond to dead people all the time. I've witnessed a bunch of people.
Oh, yeah, that's
die.
a stupid question.
But seeing them out in
what
the
about
wild,
like before you were a fireman, did you ever just see a dead body?
No.
Or even if it's not like in a casket,
I
but
don't think. I'm trying to remember.
But like, hey, my grandmama died.
Well, my grandmother died. That was the first example I had of death.
But did you see her
I was
body?
a teenager.
But did you see her body in any way before, like the funeral, before she was in the casket?
We sat with her in the hospital as she was dying. She was in a coma. She was in a coma for a little bit before.
So,
she
like,
died.
were you there when she breathed out?
No, I've seen that on plenty of calls. I've been around, you know, I've seen that more than enough times.
Is it ever not eerie? Because to me, it feels real unnatural to even, you know what I mean? Like you're going to a really, really dark spot to see the death of a human. I mean,
it's all variables. I mean, obviously, if kids, God forbid, you know,
that rough?
affects you differently. The ones that stick out for me are the ones that I'm having conversations with. I say a conversation, they're answering questions or something, and then they die. Like their full capacity is here one moment, and then they're completely dead and gone out into the universe the next. So when those kinds of things are different. Like if you go into a CPR call and CPR in progress, then they're already dead technically. So you don't see that human side, if that makes sense, the spirit or the personality side. But the ones where I've been on one that sticks with me very, very, I remember every little detail, was early on in my career. This woman got hit by a car, or she was in a car, she crossed over the lanes, went head on into someone, and she was pretty much crushed in the car. So I'm talking to her as we're cutting her out of the vehicle, and she was already crushed, but she died out while we're, how you feel, where's it hurt? I don't know. I can't feel the lower part of my body. And, obviously that's a bad thing. And please tell my kids I love them. Please tell my kids. And
like, she knew?
She was on the way to the nursery to pick them up. She got done with work.
I think you told me about that story.
Yeah.
She was driving too fast or something?
Yeah, she was in a real big hurry. There's an overcharge for every minute or so that the kid is in daycare and you're not there to pick them up, and she crossed over when she shouldn't have around the curve and hit somebody. And it's very unfortunate. It's terrible. I don't remember any names, but I remember that one very, very well. It sticks out because I'm right here. I mean, she's right here, and while we're trying to cut the door. But anyway, I've never walked. If you ever you haven't walked up on a body. I mean, living in Nashville, there's certain places that you knew not to go as a kid, where there was a chance you would see something like that. But I mean, they discover bodies all the time. I've never done that.
Yeah, I've never seen a body. I remember seeing like dead dogs and stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure, dead dogs. How did we get off on this one?
I don't know. It's good though.
I don't know. When you were talking about the growing up, some of the crazy things.
Yeah, like I remember.
Don't you kind of take that for granted now? Aren't we kind of? Does it feel kind of sterile now? Like
I think we're disconnected now.
Yeah.
I think. Well, I shouldn't say everybody is, because I think there's some people that may not even realize how bad the internet and the algorithm. Let's just call it the algorithm. I mean, you were talking about the Edgar Allan Poe stuff while you were in Richmond and this whole trip that you just explained. I hate social media. I really do. Mm. But I feel like one of the more honest ways to express yourself in social media is Instagram, because it's, to me, what Instagram is if I'm sending you a picture, or like that Bill Maher thing I sent you this morning. Okay, if I want to send it to my friends, but then I feel like, okay, man, I'm wearing my friends out, whatever. You can send it to Instagram, and then it's like, hey, man, you guys can look at this if you want to, and if not, just don't pay attention to it.
It's true.
And so I like it for that, because it's like, I'll throw this out here. If somebody wants to look at it, fine, look at it. I'm wanting to show somebody, and if nobody wants to see it, fine. But I'm not going to just wear my friends out, and then they, oh, okay, cool, man, whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you.
But like Facebook and everything else, I feel like it's a trap. And even Instagram, when I look at it now, it's just ads, titties. I mean, it's crazy, dude.
Yep.
And everything is tied together now. The video games, what you're searching, what you're looking up on your phone, all of that. And I mean, we've talked about that till we're blue in the face. But while you were on your trip, I'm sitting there just scrolling through, and I see you posted something, about being in Poe's house. Mm-hmm. And then, man, it wasn't 2 seconds later, I was getting ads for stickers that had like Edgar Allan Poe. I sent it to you. I took the picture and sent it to you. And I had gotten an advertisement to buy these Edgar Allan Poe stickers.
Wow.
And I was like, hey, bro, the algorithm knows. And like knows that we're friends and knows. And I've had a couple of instances like that lately. And I've started we write them down. But I had a buddy of mine that lives in Pensacola, same kind of time frame, and I got COVID while you were gone. That was awesome. We didn't talk about that. Vaccinated and got COVID, but it really wasn't that bad. It just chills. But anyway, so during all that, I got really into Mike Tyson's podcast, Hot Boxing.
Yeah,
you should check that out.
Daniel listens all the time.
It's good, man. He gets some weird third guys with him though that just aren't as good at conversation, but he has one with Mike Epps that's really good, I forget that guy's name. He was an ex-football player, NFL player that helped him for a while. Anyway, he's like a big yoga guy, health nut. He's really cool. So anyway, I got really into Mike Tyson's podcast. I watched like 3 of them. Watched the one with Eminem. That one's really good, dude, because you can tell Eminem's actually a little timid because he's such a big. I think he's such a big fan of Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
That he's a little starstruck.
He's a living legend, man.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm sitting there watching all these Mike Tyson podcasts, and then I'm laying up in bed. I'd watch like 3 of them that day and looked up a bunch of stuff. I was just on Mike Tyson all day. And all of a sudden, this friend of mine that I hadn't talked to, me and him talk periodically, but it'll be like months at a time. He was my roommate in college. He sends me some Mike Tyson meme. And I call him. And I'm like, dude, this is the 3rd time this has happened to me. Once I was looking at like some Dark Side of the Moon records, and a friend of mine texted me about how cool Roger Waters was or something. And I think I'm starting to see evidence that I think the algorithm tries to connect people up. That it's like it knows that I'm going to share things with you, and then that's going to get you active looking at YouTube, which is going to get you in front of ads, which is going to get you to Instagram, which is going to get you more active. That's the game. And it's crazy that it's going to that level, though.
That's why it's so powerful.
Yeah, that's why they're the richest people in the world. The people that are involved with that stuff.
Well, why isn't that just considered magic?
It should be illegal. I think it's
magic.
It's almost an immoral practice to push somebody, like to market somebody beyond their ability to control themselves. I think we have laws in place against that. So if you could show somebody exactly what they wanted and what would make them come off of their money every single time perfectly, that's what marketing people are after. And it's kind of disgusting because old school and the way we try to run our businesses is I'm going to try to provide as much value to you and I think Sherwin-Williams does a really good job of this in a lot of ways, even though they want like $4 gazillion for gallons of paint. I think a good business, and all you could really ask for from a business, is give me as much value as possible for the money that I'm giving you. Appreciate my business. You know, don't like Walmart. It's so cold when you walk in there, not temperature wise, but they don't care that you're there. They don't care what you buy. They don't care that you find what you're looking for. Most of the stock people just want you to leave them alone so they can get their job done.
Yeah.
And then you ask them a question, they probably like roll their eyes and pull an earbud out and go, "What?" I mean, that's the way a lot of businesses are run. But I think old school, man, is providing a little extra, giving your customers as much as you possibly can, not necessarily monetarily or whatever, but like think about how much training.
Isn't that sort of the same thing that they're doing though with the algorithms? They're making your experience that much greater.
I think they're going after your money. I think they can sell you anything, and whoever's paying for the space, whoever's paying for that that click or that moment, that impression in front of your face, whoever's paying for that, who's to say that item is the exact same thing that you need? It's just who paid for the advertisement. It's like maybe Doritos, when they came out, weren't the best chips. They just had the best advertisement, and now we don't even remember who they competed against. That's what I'm saying.
I feel like they're the most perfect of products.
Doritos? I love them.
Doritos and Facebook and Instagram. I like Instagram too. It's sort of a simpler way.
Do you do social media?
Instagram, yeah.
Yeah, and
it seems like such a simple and cleaner way, in my opinion, of just showing who you are instead of being annoying to people, like you were saying with Facebook.
Hey, if you don't want to see
it out there, this is what I'm doing right now, and it's really cool. I just figured I'd want to share it with people, like that.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's yeah.
And if you don't want to see it, you go on to something else. And if you can like it or not, you can unfollow me if you don't want to see it anymore.
The great thing is, too, I don't really know the ins and out, and I don't care to know the ins and out of people. I just think it's interesting what Craig's doing right now. He sends this, look at this, guys. Look at this meat I just put on the grill or something. Okay, well, that's cool. Like, whatever. I wish I had a recipe or something.
But see, I think people can go too far into that where they live for what they're putting online.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're there.
They want
for sure.
the clicks. They want the viewers. I don't care anything about any of that, dude. I care about growing as a person. I care about cleaning out any kind of cobwebs. And that was what's so funny, dude, when I was thinking about all that childhood stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I made some for real mental advancements that I feel like will help me as a parent, you know, being more humble or caring or understanding that I'm sitting here laughing about, I didn't know this person that lived across the street from me. What were they even up to? And then I think about, okay, my kids are going to have that same view about my neighbors. If we don't talk to them, they're just going to be these people they see.
Or how about this? This is a good one. How about when you look back at old pictures and you start reminiscing about Uncle Jerry or whatever, that you're looking at these old pictures.
Uncle Jerry.
Yeah. When you're looking at these pictures and you're sitting in the living room floor and you're playing with your cousin, you're 7 or whatever.
I don't really look at old pictures though.
Well, I'm just saying if I'm sure that you have, right? You've seen old pictures. Okay, so you look at that picture and it's just a moment in time. It's just captured. That's it. That time is way past. But in that moment, all the people in the room think this will never end. It's great. Did you just look at your Instagram?
Yeah. No, it occurred to me that it was 12:30 and that I thought I heard my phone ring and I wanted to make sure that Ashley wasn't just sitting outside with some food.
Oh, yeah.
But she's not.
Yeah.
Total false alarm.
But
yeah, the moment's captured. It's crazy.
I think about the a lot.
Well, dude, like I have this picture back here.
These moments will never end, but they do.
You see this black and white picture back here? Ashley's, it's right on that show. It's little bitty.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lady in that picture that's Ashley's grandmother who's passed away.
Mm-hmm.
She's like 20 or something. And then her mom, like everybody in that picture is dead.
Yeah. I think
It's
about
wild.
stuff like that all the time. Probably shouldn't, but
I don't know. We had that other conversation before about how good the United States is and how cool it is to live in a place where we do have freedom and we can sit here and express ourselves and talk and do all that. And man, all of this, every time we talk about it, the conclusions that I always come to in my mind are that it's so much nicer to just live and be nice to people. Like that's more fun. It's almost like a hobby to be nice to people, and it's addicting, and it is enjoyable as a human being to be nice to people. And it's just such a shame that, I mean, you saw that Bill Maher thing I sent you this morning about people being snitches and that it's Snitch Nation and all that. Like, why do we have to be so mean to each other, man?
They're pulling up people's high school tweets that are in their 30s, 30 years old.
Yeah, go check that out, man. That Bill Maher Snitch
insane.
Nation stuff. I don't even like him, man. And my problem with him is he's like those other nighttime comedians, the Showtime comedians. They're just going to pick whatever side is the best angle at the time, and they flip and flop all over the place. But what he's saying is very accurate.
It's incredibly accurate.
It's like, why are we being so mean to each other, dude?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I ain't trying to win nothing.
Dude, and the only other thing that I think I have on my mind right now is when I was hanging out thinking through all that, all my childhood stories, I was thinking about the idea of an album.
Okay.
And how cool it is. Like, what is an album? Like, we have a movie, and that's it's a video expression of a time period and it's telling a story. But what is an album? And it's this collection of songs where someone is expressing themselves, or if it's a concept record, they're telling a story, or it's a time period for somebody like, let's say, Leonard Skinner. I watched that Leonard Skinner Netflix documentary, and I was thinking about how their albums are just this snapshot in time, almost like what you're talking about with the pictures. Mm-hmm. So they go into the studio. They only have the available equipment in their day, and then they make this music. And then maybe it took them 10, 15 minutes to make this. Maybe they made it first First Chance. There's a lot of those records where first time they recorded it, that song, that's it. So you're talking about 5 minutes of their time, and then look how much enjoyment and money and prosperity. And so I was really thinking about the idea of people like Lenny Kravitz. And me and Jeff have talked about, we're going to have to get him on here, and I think me and that dude are going to talk about.
We lost an hour of our day
talking about Lenny Kravitz. So we won't talk about Lenny Kravitz right now, but we're going to do a whole podcast on Lenny Kravitz. And I think people like him, in their own way, became better ambassadors of peace. And people who make records and music and art and poems and stories and books are doing more to advance peace and expression and acceptable expression than our own politicians and diplomats, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are we paying these people to do things that other people do way more beautifully? I mean, you had Neil Young and Leonard Skinner having diss tracks, arguing with each other about the South in a very open public format in the 70s. And there are still people like me who like Leonard Skinner and like Neil Young, and it's okay that they disagreed about their view of the South. Mm. So I don't know, man. I think a lot of this stuff is not necessarily new, and I got really excited about the idea of albums again, and all my love for that stuff just keeps growing and growing and growing. But I thought that was a really cool angle on how to look at them.
Well, and even you pointed out that you can tell the difference between an original copy and then remake copies of the records.
Yeah, and I heard somebody say one time too, man, because obviously you could spend a gajillion dollars and get the nicest stereo you could possibly get and get all just perfect copies of records, and this is the one, it's $300, it's all analog, it's perfect. But really, when it gets down to it, man, I heard a guy say one time when he was reviewing turntables, and he's like, if you don't enjoy the music, then you're missing the whole point. Like, it doesn't matter what you're listening to it on. Are you enjoying the songs? Yes or no? Like, does it make you want to dance? Does it make you want to, bop your head or listen to the song 5 times? Like, is it catching? Is this person's expression catching you or not? Because if not, like, move on to the next thing. But I don't know. I really try. I talk about this stuff all the time, but I really try to have an honest look at a lot of these records. But that one in particular just kind of blew my mind, because then I'm going back and, we were just kind of born into the middle of what was going on, and you're having The Wall and Dark. Bro, The Wall came out, you were 3 years old.
Yeah.
It's 1976. You were 1 year old when Pink Floyd released Animals. Like, we were growing up. Pink Floyd released records after I was alive. Like, we were right in the middle of all that. But now think about how timeless some of these albums are, like Dark Side of the Moon and The Wall. I mean, it's such a big piece of our culture. It's like seeing a picture of Elvis. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you see a picture of Elvis and it's hard to imagine that was like actually a real person. Do you know what I mean? Do you ever think like that?
I think about that stuff all the time. My dad was a year old when a guy, you can look it up on YouTube, and I forget what it's called, but it's Guess Who I Am or something like that. It was a game show back in the 50s. And there was a guy that was on there who was very old, but he was in the theater when Abraham Lincoln was shot. He was a 5-year-old or something, and he was there at the play when Lincoln was shot, and he remembers it.
God.
My dad was a year old when that guy was alive. He was alive and there when Lincoln was assassinated. So American history is not that old.
No.
Not that long ago. It may seem like it, but it's not.
I mean,
Abraham Lincoln, dude. My dad was a year old when that guy was alive. I think about those connections a lot. I'm assuming that's what you meant by that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant.
Yeah.
I thought about that with my wife's grandparents. They passed away a couple of years ago, and they were way up into their 90s.
Yeah.
And then
Oh
you think
my
about
God,
all the different
stories, dude.
experiences that they would have.
And think about when they were
seen.
kids, the stories that what I would love to have asked them in particular, and I try to ask old people this all the time, that who did you meet that was really old when you were a kid, and what stories did they say? Like, we're talking really old. You know, it could have been born in, 1860s for us. Okay, so we went to Appomattox. That's one of the other places that we went. And that's where Lee and Grant signed conditions of surrender, And then pretty much...
Did you go see the White House of the Confederacy while you were in Richmond?
No,
It's on the campus there at VCU. It's not really much to see.
Really?
Yeah.
We were right by it.
Yeah, I mean, they probably burned it down by now.
I don't know.
I'm not like picking sides.
I know. It's just a
making a trash joke.
It's truly just a historic significance is all the places that I went. My mind was blown at all the history that's there. We thought we had a lot of history here, which we kind of do, but it's way different.
It's completely different in Richmond, though.
You go to Richmond, man, it's like a time capsule.
Yeah, it is. Boston's a lot that way.
They got cobblestone streets, dude.
Yeah.
You know why? Not for the historic significance, and they don't tear them up. It's because they still work, and they just leave them. Yeah. But anyway, God dang it, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, the connection with time. My wife's mom was born in 1943. All right. When she was a little girl, let's say that she would remember a story at 10 years old for the rest of her life. I think that's pretty reasonable to assume. If you heard a story at 10 years old that was an impact on you, you're probably going to remember it the rest of your life. That's an old enough age where you remember everything. 10 years old.
You think so?
I think so, sure. So let's say she was 10 years old in 1953. In 1853, a 100-year-old person would have been born before the Civil War and had been 10 years old when the Civil War started. So if her mom was 10 years old talking to a 100-year-old person, they would be able to tell her a story of how she remembers when the Civil War started.
I knew somebody who was born in the 1800s.
I think I did too when I was young.
My wife's grandmother or great-grandmother, she died at 105 or 106 years old. And I think she was born in 1899.
Now, I'm betting, and I haven't asked her this, but I need to. I'm betting that if I talk to her mom and ask her, do you remember talking to any old people? Because you're not interested in those stories. So,
think about what you're saying. If she was born in 1899, she could have known somebody who was born in 1799.
And told her stories about how they knew George Washington. And then...
But not at 1 year old. So maybe like 1809. I mean, now you're talking that my wife's grandmother might have known somebody that was alive when like Edgar Allan Poe and all them
Thomas
were kicking
Jefferson died at
getting TB.
1859. I think it was 59. I think that's right. Or 49.
So did you study quite a bit before you went up there? Did you read anything, or did you just try to go up
Mostly
there
Poe,
open and empty?
And D.C. I thought we were going to go to D.C. I studied a lot on that, and I wish I regretted it because there's a lot of stuff at D.C., obviously. I mean, you got some museums there, but, man, there was so much I didn't realize in and around Richmond. It was incredible. But anyway,
cool
it was, and we didn't even scratch the surface of all the stuff. So we're making another go at it.
Dude, I really want to get my buddy Eric on here, the one I made fun of. Well, I didn't make fun of him, but the one that went to Charlie Murphy with me out in Kansas City.
Oh yeah.
He went to University of Richmond. He's from Richmond, and he is a real history buff, dude. And he knows, he could tell us all about the Civil War and when it started and the statues. He's really into it. But I know some of that stuff can be kind of touchy these days. I see all that just kind of on a case by case basis, man. Like this, I do know that once a lot of the Jim Crow laws and stuff started going in, there were a lot of integration of schools, I think is what it was. When a lot of that stuff started happening, a lot of your southern states did what they could do and started erecting statues of some of these people, Robert E. Lee or whatever. And, man,
I don't even have an argument on it, really.
It is case by case, because in that particular case, if it's coming from a place of hate and that's why it was put up, but like the little statue that's in Franklin, it's just like the little Civil War boy or whatever. Is that so bad?
I don't know.
And then I heard somebody point out one time that in Arlington, I think it's in Arlington National Cemetery, there's a monument from the North put it up for the Southern troops. And I think it says something to the effect of, even though there may have been errors in their mind, the way they think, they were still our brethren and were a worthy opponent on the battlefield. That's pretty much what it says. It's like, do you take that down? That's coming from a pure place of honest, just, it sucks we had to fight our brothers. That's pretty much what that monument says.
That's why I'm glad I went to Appomattox, where they signed off on ending the war. It wasn't meant to end the war, but within 2 weeks the war was over, because Virginia had the strongest army, and Lee had to surrender his troops. But that's the way Grant approached him. He said, look, you're cut off. The depot where you're waiting for supplies to come in, we've taken that over. You're not going to be resupplied. You are surrounded, even though it's a couple of miles apart, but you're still surrounded. Please don't do this. Let's not fight anymore. We have an opportunity. We can come up with ways to make this better. And he never really considered surrender, but he knew that he was cut off. He knew he was in trouble, and he agreed to meet with Grant. Grant sent couriers to him and just said, look, this is a message from Grant. And they talked back and forth a couple of times via letters. And then they met in the town of Appomattox, and it's all still there, the buildings and, the way it was laid out, very specific stuff. And they met where they signed it was not a courthouse. They met at this dude's house. His name was McLean. And that's where they negotiated over the course of 3 days. Well, Lee was terrified that his men, not so much him exactly, but his men would be paraded through Washington, D.C., that all the officers would be executed, and made sport of and that sort of thing. He wanted them to have dignity, and that he knew it was over, but he wanted to go out with some sort of class and dignity. So that was part of what they negotiated. But Grant said, look, man, I don't want anything. And there's no reason for all your men to die. We're talking thousands of people. And that means that thousands of my guys are going to die too. Don't forget that. So we don't need to do this. It's over. Just take a look around. Just realize that it's over. And I don't want any. And he said, he doesn't. He wants you to surrender. He wanted him to surrender all the cannons and all the rifles. But if you had a personal sidearm or a personal rifle that wasn't issued to you from the Confederate States, you could keep it. So then they signed this. I forget what it was called, but it was a voucher that was printed. They agreed that there needed to be something that a Confederate soldier who is now walking home, he's in Virginia, Tennessee troop, and he walks back to Tennessee. Well, the war is over for him, so he needs to go home. I mean, he could hopefully catch a train or something like that, but he didn't have any money either, and there was no more money coming in for his pay. A lot of them didn't get paid anyway. They were volunteers. It just blows my mind, man. I don't know. I got respect for both sides based on where they were at that time, because they were soldiers, and it has nothing. It was based on values, a lot of them too. And that was the reason that Lee got into the war anyway, was that he saw the importance of the states having power versus the federal government. And that's why he wanted to be a Confederate. But even his son, when the war was over, finished his career in the military for the federal government, So, I don't know.
I think one thing to learn from it, man, is we don't want to repeat that.
We don't want to repeat it for sure.
Because look how
but
far
we're doing it now.
Look how far removed we are from it, and we're still talking about it.
But I think that
it still affects us.
I think we're doing it now. I think that too. It's unfortunate that people pick sides all the time with some of the ridiculous things, man. But I don't know that lines are solid.
Don't you think that the news and the algorithm and social media and all of that together, I really think it's causing just like a social Chernobyl. We don't even, we're arguing about a vaccine and like just silly stuff, dude. It's not even big stuff.
I think that we're still.
Now, somebody may argue that the COVID stuff is a big thing. I'm not saying it's not a big thing. I'm saying we're not killing people, or there's not like one big group of people that's going through and murdering the other half. I mean, there are way more serious conflicts that are going on in other places in this world, is what I'm saying.
Dude,
North Korea.
I honestly think it's just, we don't know what to make of it yet.
It's like we're just a bunch of crying babies.
Mm-hmm. Plus, I mean, think about it back then. You had to get your food.
Yeah, like when we were talking about the Thomas Jefferson stuff. Yeah, where do you think you got your food? You had to grow it or trade or something.
You had to get it.
Or all of the above.
You had to keep a fire going in your house during the winter. You're going to freaking die. I just think, and it wasn't that long ago.
So now you got to keep 400 people. Like going back to Thomas Jefferson, now think about these plantations keeping 400 people warm. How do they do that?
Yeah. How do they keep them watered? How do you keep everybody fed? How do you do? You got to think about that. But on a personal level, just you and your family, I think, man, I just think that we're at that point. I was thinking about it yesterday, man. If you wanted something to eat, you can go down to the restaurant. It's like it's just something that people don't consider anymore as actual hunger.
Bro, me and you could have warm food and a cold drink in ice in like 7 minutes from right now if we wanted to.
Yep.
Straight to McDonald's.
Yep.
Bam, food.
And somebody else will make it almost instantly.
I mean, you could almost spend less than an hour. You could spend less than an hour every day on food. But not back then, you couldn't.
People say it all the time about, man, if those people back then, if they could look at us now, they'd all be ashamed. They would laugh at us at just such an easy life that we have. Well, yeah, 50 years ago, we would do the same thing. Each generation becomes more liberal and easier, I think. But I don't think it's sustainable.
I would agree with the liberal piece, but only from the perspective of like education. I really do believe that liberalism from this country comes kind of almost the way the Soviets used to. It came into the Soviet Union, or not the Soviet Union, but came into like Dostoevsky's Russia, was through seeing what Europe was doing or seeing what these other people are doing. I think some of the stuff like marijuana laws, homosexuality laws, I think there may be things that were taboo for the last 200 or 300 years that we see examples in other countries of, look, they're letting them do this over there, and it's not, the sky's not falling down like the Christian people are saying that it's going to if we do this thing. Like from that liberal perspective, it's almost through a scientific view of, okay, I see what you're saying over here, but if you look in Europe or Sweden or whoever, name the example, look at what they're doing and it's not doing what you're saying. So, go kill yourself or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, stop with your craziness.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of that going on too.
I think that it couldn't help but change a society. The easier a life gets, the more insane people become. I think it really is, and it's that Joe Rogan thing.
That biblical idea of becoming like a child, I really do think life is easier the more simplified it is. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't mean, and I'm not saying Thomas Jefferson, the way they lived was simplified, but what I'm saying is the crazier you make your life with hobbies and, man, I don't know, drama, fighting or chaos, drugs, alcohol, all those different things you start adding into your life that can screw them up. I mean, man, you're playing with fire, and we know that. Like, you can see the history of people doing that type stuff, but people continue to choose those type things. I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm losing my thought process here, bro. I hate. We always end up talking about these type things, and I was talking about how simple life can be. For me personally, my personal experience, I'm kind of an uptight OCD person anyway. So I can be. I feel like I'm a chill person, but my wife doesn't think I'm chill. Like, you know what I mean?
I got you.
Like, I'm laid back, but stuff's heavy. So I don't know, man. The more that I have chilled out and tried to look at life as simple as possible. So let's take like my real 9-to-5 job. If I look at that job and I go, okay, if I give them as good a work as I possibly can, and they give me a paycheck, and I work between this hour and this hour, and then I don't think about it outside of those hours, I do the best I can, I give them good work, they give me my paycheck, the end, right? Like that's kind of how I frame that one up. I try not to, I don't get into any drama. I don't care about the whole storyline of what's going on. I know what I'm trying to do with my projects. I know what I'm doing with my work. And like, that's a good place to be with a job.
Yeah.
You know, and then for me personally, we have the vinyl record business that my wife runs that I started after Sherwin-Williams, you know, kind of when I was in limbo there before this job. And now she's taken that to the moon. And I had somebody ask me the other day, like, man, what are your career ambitions? Like, are you trying to move up at work or what? And I said, actually, it's kind of the opposite. Like, I feel totally comfortable with my 9-to-5. I know that job. I can train people at that job. So I still get that out where I'm, you know, teaching, and I like that. But everything that's like my personal endeavor to just be better or have some sort of verticality to my making money is into that record business. So after 5 o'clock, we go out, and it's exactly what I love, right? So I go out there, and I know what it's like to get a record in the mail. I know what that feels like, and it's fun, and I'm a part of that for other people. So we just drive that sled and see, you know, how cool we can, how well we can express our vibe there. And then what's funny is I was telling this to you, when me and you worked at Sherwin-Williams, I had like 1 or 2 records I'd be buying and selling, and I would take them over to the post office. And I remember you specifically asking me, and I think we've talked about this before, but to see how much it's grown in, what would that be, man? Like 9-10 years. And then now I feel like the podcast has become my new, like, man, let's just try this.
Yeah.
People do it. It's fun.
That's all I
like
ever listen to is podcasts.
Like, let's just do it. And so now this is fun, and this is my little experiment. And so I guess what I'm saying is I have found ways to be happy, and really dug down in my head and thought, like, what makes me happy? Hanging out with my family. That's the goal. Is I don't want to raise strippers. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, strippers are working hard, but I don't really want my daughters doing that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so you have your goals and you do that. But I don't know, man. I get wrapped up in what I can do for myself. And that's a big idea that Jordan Peterson talks about a lot, about how you as a person can do more for your own well-being and verticality than anybody else.
Anybody. It's up to you.
And that's where I try to stay, man. And I feel like, because all this is coming off of the country stuff and how everybody feels and are at each other, and it bothers me, man. Like, it really does, because I feel like it really doesn't have to be like that.
It doesn't. Like,
it's just people being selfish. It's people taking their views and putting them way out in front of everybody else's. Bro, we have so many different types of people that live in this country,
which is great.
Yeah.
And that's what makes us.
But it makes it hard sometimes, because, I mean, what do we know?
Well, what I'm saying is
that
that's the whole point
cultures
of what we're doing. But what makes it so great is that that's our strength, I think.
Especially in the Olympics, bro.
We got a lot of different avenues of thought. We've got a lot of different avenues of thought. but and athletics, I guess. I don't know. I'm losing.
No, I'm
losing my idea of what I was getting at.
Yeah, I don't want to get into some kind of like diversity conversation.
No,
man,
not diversity.
There's bad sides of that too.
Not necessarily diversity.
But we do have all the cool stuff.
But we've got all the cool stuff, and it's all these different ideas that come together. The difference is, though, where I think that we're getting wrong now, at least it seems, in my opinion, is that we're not nice to one another. It's tribalism. Embrace the difference. Don't make it
the
separate.
irony of that
you know what I mean?
is one of those sides is supposed to be the super religious side, and that's one of my biggest frustrations with right wing people.
Mm-hmm.
Is and I'm not trying to turn this into some left right conversation. What I'm saying specifically is my biggest frustration with right wing quote Christian people is like a lot of the stuff that you see the right wing side pushing for doesn't seem like it comes from a place of love, dude. And I don't know how many times I have to say things about like the border crisis and illegal immigration and all that. I see that totally different than the way the right wing people see it, man. We have sent missionaries for years into these countries as quote Christian people to help them, get clean teeth, or like they'll do like a medical trip, or they'll help build churches or water or whatever, and all that stuff's great. But those people start getting a taste for American culture and understand that we have it going on here, and then they hear stories and they have people that live here. And I've heard stories, man, I got buddies that work some of these people from like Guatemala, and he's like, dude, they send back more than half their money, and like they live great over there. And, the money they can make here can really sustain them over there, and they send it back, and they try to do 15 years here and then go back. So what I'm saying is that Christians in a way have kind of helped cause this problem, because they go, and it's not something they did. It's inadvertent. This inadvertently happened, I think. But I think some of these people see what they could come have here. And come on, man, you only live one time. What would you do?
Yeah.
If you had your little son and your little daughter and your wife, and you knew, okay, bro, I got this guy, and he told me that it'll take 6 weeks to get from Colombia or wherever to Texas. And he got it all mapped out. And it's not that caravan stuff you see on TV. Like, I got a dude
who's going to put us
like
there.
Like, I'm putting 30,000 on this. This is for real.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else, just us. I got guarantees, all this stuff. I'm going to go. What do you think? Dude, we're going. Like, you would go.
Yeah.
So it's a little haughty in a way, I think, to look from the what seems to me like the mainstream right side of the border crisis. I mean, they can point and blame Biden and do all that. But, I mean, the fact is, dude, is that there are people at our border that are trying to be here. Why can't we just ask the question why and start seeing what we can? Bro, we blew so much money in all these wars. They could, with all the money that we've put up in some of these countries, man, that like we look back now 20, 30 years later and we go, dude, what were we even doing, man? Why were we doing all that?
It's mind blowing.
And it's frustrating to like, I mean that with all due respect to the people that served over there. I know there's people that are in like way different spots than me mentally on it, and I respect all that. But what I'm saying is we've spent so much money. How many apartments could we just build out in the middle of these deserts or whatever down there? I don't know. Like, what could we do? I just don't see our leaders with any really good creative solutions. And I know these are like hugely complex problems because, there's always the terror threat.
It really is,
and
man.
there's this and this. It's so many different
a lot
layers.
Of combinations.
But man, I think it really goes back to like the tone of that Naomi Parks. There are people who are alive right now that are suffering right now that could be helped right now. Like, not this in 20 years we hope to. I don't know, man. We talked about the whole if I was president thing. I mean, those would be the questions I would be asking if I'm like a leader like that. I would be like, okay, man, all this other stuff y'all can argue out, but who's suffering and what can we do about it? Because that's America, what that flag means to me.
In America.
Yeah, start right there.
Yeah.
And then,
that would be my focus.
And then my foreign people, I would have them on that. I'd go, okay, hey, you guys are the domestic people. I want to know who's suffering right now, what we can do about it, and what options we have. All right, all my foreign people, I want a list. I want the number one suffering country. What can we do about it? And then let's just look for opportunities.
Doesn't that get more complex? Because if people yearn to be free, they come here, and once you're here, okay, we can work with you. Let's get this worked out and that worked out. But dude, you mess with North Korea, you're messing with China.
Yeah, and force and fighting, and I know that was like the first thing that popped in my head. Like, how do you fight them? Well, maybe you don't. Maybe it is an education piece. And I don't mean that in some cliche way. I think you go over and go, hey, look, man, this is how we do our agriculture. And over 70 years, this is what it's done for us. You can feed your people and this cannot be a problem. And then all your people don't have to die and starve. And then you could use those, like lay out a plan. I mean, I don't know how much of that stuff goes on, but it seems like those need to be the responsible reactions to this stuff sometimes versus just shooting people in the face.
It's complex.
I know sometimes people just need to get shot in the face, though. I understand that.
It's true, but
it's like going back to the dog thing. There's just some people that are either going to try to kill us.
Mm-hmm. And let's do it. Let's go in and rock and roll for a year and then back out. Why we got to build a nation? That's what upsets me. That's what got me about Afghanistan, which I'm like you. I don't want to, it's too much to go into.
Yeah, I don't like getting into all that stuff.
But it's true.
But at a simple level, would you agree that it is our responsibility to at least look and see, it's like the seatbelt conversation. It's a simple addition, a simple little small change that we could do that would save a whole lot of lives. Those would be the things that I would be asking my people. Give me some options, man. I want some easy serves, maybe. Let's just try to get this thing going and figure out an actual solution. But in this country right now, we fight some of those things that we already have in place that get politicized, like food stamps. Mm-hmm. Okay, would you agree that there are some people that abuse food stamps?
Of course.
Of course. Public housing, any of that. There are people who abuse. There's always going to be. You know why? Because that's kind of like the state of man, right? Mm-hmm. It's like a hierarchy of the farther you are from that median income, probably the scummier things you're willing to do to not frigging die.
Yep.
How is that so hard to understand, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now you got people above the median income. They get money. They can throw different directions, whatever. All right. So if you have people that abuse these systems, okay, that doesn't mean the whole system is bad.
Right.
It just means you have the wrong person managing that system, and you don't have something set up in place to where they're actually responsible for the system doing what it's supposed to do, which just means you set it up bad.
Yeah.
So anyway, man, like you can't just tear down the fact that in this country, there's not really a risk of starving to death. We have things in place. Now, are there people that starve to death? Yeah, of course. But we have things in place that try to stop that here.
True.
So you can start showing things like that. Like, look, man.
Yeah.
You have this big problem, but we have this little bitty solution that if you just... I don't know, man. What do you think about that? I don't think you can solve all the world's problems, man, but I just feel like our aim is just a little off right now.
I think it's a good point to end on.
Maybe we should come back and talk about that, man.
I think it's a really good one. We haven't talked about dictatorship. Let's do that. Let's do our research and talk about dictatorships, because that's what the problem is over there. This is the only place where the experiment was, where this country was born from freedom.
It's not perfect.
It's not perfect.
But it ain't that bad. It ain't that bad.
No. And it used to be a lot worse, and it gets better and better all the time. We're going in the right direction. Everything is.
Yeah, like even the good old days, the 80s and 90s, people were getting blasted and shot and robbed at way higher rates than they are now. And go look that up. That's statistical facts.
Yeah, and we're getting better. Be nicer to one another.
But
learn from history.
Like stuff like Southside Chicago. It's a war zone in this country. Like what could be done? What could you do to help it? I don't know. And I think that's what we have to. That's where we have to look as citizens and hold people responsible that are in office. And I don't mean campaign promises. I mean really hold some of these people accountable, dude. I think we've gotten so tribal politically that we don't even hold our own people accountable to do the things that we're wanting them to do. Like, of course, we're divided. But don't you think that most people that have these representatives just want their area to be nicer or to have more commerce or to have businesses come there? So we send these people to represent us. But like I was telling the dude the other day, I was like, I mean, I'm an idiot too. I can't name off all the representatives from my area or all the senators from Tennessee, or I mean, I might be able to think about it and come up with a few, but I mean, I don't know, man. Yeah, it's probably
I
wasn't.
don't think any of that matters, but it's a good one to think about and figure out for the next one.
Yeah, dude.
I'm going to do that. If you feel like talking about it, I'll talk about it with you.
Yeah, I dig it.
Because I don't want to come across as an idiot which I already am, but I don't want to come across as an idiot to people that might be listening to this and say, they get very frustrated and say, that's part of the problem is because you're not informed. So let's do that. Let's inform ourselves and figure out a way. Let's do it. We can solve the problem.
Would we talk about it from the perspective of, like, we would obviously be assuming that everybody should have to have equal human rights, and would we be talking about just the specific places where we feel like they don't, like, they're missing human rights because of their dictatorship?
Of course.
I think some of that, man, even comes into just access to like the technology and informations and infrastructure that's here. I mean, if you don't let your people travel outside of the country like North Korea, what is that?
Well, the dictatorship is different, man. I mean, it's not so much about the advancement of your country. It's about maintaining a legacy, that your son
They think
can
he's a
take
god.
over. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anyway. All right, man. I'll probably back that up and take it off what we said. Why don't we just end right there?
Okay.